Calypso, we live. Okay, thank you for coming to um my uh podcast. I'm reading the story of Hiawatha, a book from 1910. Will you be still enough that I can do this? Okay, Calypso. Eclipso is one of the kittens that we had. And I call her Eclipso. Well, I first her face I was gonna call her Two Face because she has a kind of like a split, and then I thought, well, Eclipso sounds better. I mean, she got one half of her face is orange, the other one is orange and black, and she's a tortoiseshell. Right, Eclipso? You a tortoiseshell, and she's such a huggy buggy. And if you hadn't heard yesterday, her sister, Penelope, who I call Skunk, and one of the black females, kittens, got adopted at the same house. And now they have to put up with a chihuahua because the chihuahua likes kitties because they're the same size as they are. Okay, what I am reading again is the book called The Story of Hiawatha. It's from 1910. I have it on computers, so I have to use a ruler to help me read because the lines always shift and everything. And we are at 7, which is Hiawatha sailing. Um, it says, once Hiawatha was sitting along beside the swift and mighty river Taquan Tequanmao, Tequanmia, Te, Aquamina. Okay, I'm gonna call it the Aquamina, even though it has a T. He longed for a canoe with which he could explore the river bank to bank, and he learned how to. Uh, he learned to know. Okay, you're bugging. Know how he learned to know all the rapids and the shallows. And Hiawatha set about to build himself a canoe such as he needed, and he called upon the forest to give him aid. "Give me your bark, O birch tree," cried Hiawatha. "I will build me a light canoe for sailing that shall float upon the river like a yellow leaf in autumn. Lay aside your cloak, O birch tree, for summer time is coming." And the birch tree sighed and rustled in a breeze, murmured, saying, "Take my coat, O Hiawatha." Okay, the baby's got all the babies have colds, so you might hear sneezes in the background. Okay, with his knife, Hiawatha cut around the trunk of the birch tree beneath the branches until the sap came oozing forth, and he also cut the bark around the tree trunk just above the roots. He slashed the bark upon the top of the mountain, slashed the bark from top to bottom, raised it with wooden wedges, and stripped it from the trunk of the tree without a crack in its golden surface. "Give me your boughs, O cedar," cried Hiawatha. "Give me strong, give me your strong and pliant branches to make my canoe firmer and tough beneath me." Though all the branches of the cedar there wept a no okay. Though all the branches of the cedar there swept a noise as if someone were crying with horror, but the tree bent down and whispered, "Take my boughs, O Hiawatha." He cut down the boughs of the cedar tree and made them into the framework of the shape of two bows bent together. He covered this framework with the rich and yellow bark. "Give me your roots, O lark tree," cried Hiawatha, "to bind the ends of my canoe together, that the water may not enter and the river may not wet me." The lark tree shivered in the air and touched Hiawatha's forehead with its tassels, sighing, "Take them, take them." As he tore the fibers from the earth with the roots, he sewed the ends of his canoe together and bound with bark tightly the framework, and his canoe became light and graceful in shape. He took the balsam and pitch from the fir tree and smeared the seams so that no water might ooze in it, and he asked for the quills of the cow, 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 the head quills of cow, cow the hedgehog, to make the neck and the two stars for his canoe. Then Hiawatha built his birch canoe, and all the life and magic of the forest was held in it, for it had all the lightness of the bark of the birch tree, and the toughness of the cedar, and the dancing and floating on the river as lightly as a yellow leaf. Okay, you're getting in an uncomfortable position. Okay. Hiawatha, Hiawatha did not have any pedals for his canoe. He needed none, for he could guide it by merely wishing that it would turn to the right or to the left. The canoe could move the, the canoe move what in whatever direction he chose, and would glide over the water softly or slowly just as he desired. All Hiawatha had to do was to sit still and to think where he cared to have it take him. Never was there such a wonderful craft before. Hiawatha called to Wizened and asked for help to clear the way, all the sunken logs and all the rocks and the sandbars in the river beds. And he and Wasson traveled down the whole length of the river. Wasson swam and dove like a beaver, tugging at sunken sunken logs, swooping out the sandbars with his hands, kicking the boulders out of the stream, and digging away all the snags and tangles. They went back and forth and up and down the river. Wasn't working just as hard as was able, and Hiawatha showing him where he could find new logs and rocks and sandbars to remove, until together they made the channel safe and regular all the way from where the river rose among the mountains in the spring to where it emptied a wide rolling sheet of water into the Bay of Aquamine. Aquamina. Yeah, Aquamina is spelled with a T, but it has the Spanish word aqua and then it has mina. Okay. Number 8, Hiawatha's fishing. In his wonderful canoe, he sailed over the shining big sea water to go fishing and to catch with his fishing line made of cedar no other than the very king of fishes, Nama. This was his. Nay, yeah, Nama, the big sturgeon. All along, Hiawatha sailed over the lake, but on the bow of his canoe sat a squirrel, flis, flis, frisky and chattering at the thought of the wonderful sport that he was going to see. Through the calm, clear water, Hiawatha saw the fishes swimming to and fro. First, he saw a yellow perch that shone like a sunbeam. Then he saw a crawfish moving along the sandy bottom of the lake, and at last he saw a great blue shape that swept the sand floor with its mighty tail and waved its huge fin lazily backwards, backwards and forwards, and Hiawatha knew it was the monster that this monster was Nama, the sturgeon, king of all fishes. Take my bait, shouted Hiawatha, dropping his line of cedar into the calm water. Come up and take my bait, O Nama, king of fishes. It says fishes because that's, I know it's supposed to be fish is supposed to be for multiple, but they always say fish. But this book has fishes. Excuse me. But the great fish did not move, although Hiawatha shouted to him over and over again. At last, however, Nama began to grow tired of this endless shouting, and he said to um, Muskenoza, Muskenoza, the pike, take the bait of this rude fellow Hiawatha and break his line. Hiawatha felt the fishing line taut and then snap, and as he was pulling it in, Muskenosa, the pike, tugged so hard that the canoe stood almost on end, and the squirrel perched on the top. But when Hiawatha saw that the fish it was that had taken the bait, he was full of scorn and shouted, "Shame on you! You are not the king of fishes. You are only a pike, only the pike Muscadova." And the pike let go of Hiawatha's line and sank to the bottom, very much ashamed. Then uh, Nama said to the sunfish, Udwash, Udwash, take Hiawatha's bait and break his line. I am tired of his shouting and his boasting. So the sunfish came, so and the sunfish rose up through the water like a great white moon. It seized Hiawatha's line and to struggled to struggled so that the canoe made a whirlpool and the water in the water and rocked in the waves. It made splash upon the beach and the rim of the lake. But Hiawatha saw the fish he had he saw the fish. He was very angry and shouted again, "Oh, shame on you! You are a sunfish, Utawash, and you come when I you come when I called Nama, king of fishes." And the sunfish let go of Hiawatha's line and sank to the bottom where he hid among the lily stems. Now Nama, the great surgeon, heard Hiawatha shout at him again, and furious he rose with a swirl to the top of the water, leaping in the air, scattering a spray on every side, and opened his huge jaws. He had rushed the canoe to swallow Hiawatha's canoe and all. In the dark cave of Nama's giant maw, Hiawatha in his canoe headlong at plunged, plunged headlong, and as a log rushed down a roaring river in the springtime. At first he was frightened, for it was so inky black that he could not see his hand before his face. But at last he felt the great heart beating in the darkness. He felt a great heart beating in the darkness, and he clenched his fist and struck the giant's heart with all his strength. As it struck, he felt Nama tremble all over, and he heard the water gurgle as the great fish rushed through it trying to breathe. And Hiawatha struck the mighty heart yet another heavy blow. Then he dragged his then he dragged his canoe crosswise. Sorry, I think they're rebuilding next door, and I have a dumpster here, and I just hit this, and it just went way past where I was. So give me a second while I go back up to try to find where I was. It's at 10. Okay. Okay, I'm going to try to find this again because I have completely lost this. So I know I'm in him fishing. So give me a second. I think somebody's. Well, I'm going to have to pause this for a minute to find out what's going on because I got my phone in the other room, which has no minutes that no one can call me, but it does have text. So give me a second and I'll be right back. Well, it wasn't anything important. It was just some notifications from next door that was binging. Huh. Okay, let's go ahead and get back to the story. I found it. Okay, so we are at squirrel. Okay, crosswise Hiawatha. Okay, there it is. Okay, here where I was. Okay, in the dark cave of uh Nama, Nama's giant knot Mao, Hiawatha and his canoe plunged headlong at, as a log rushes down a roaring river in the springtime. At first he was frightened, for it was so inky black that he could not see his hands before his face. But At last he felt a giant heart beating in the darkness, and he clenched his fist and struck the giant heart with all his strength. As he struck it, he felt Nemo tremble all over, and he heard the water gurgle as the great fish rushed it through it trying to breathe. And Hiawatha struck the mighty heart yet again an extra blow. Then he dragged his canoe crosswise so that it might not be thrown from the belly of the great fish and be drowned in a whirling water where Nemu was fighting for life. And the squirrel helped Hiawatha drag his canoe to safety and drug and pulled bravely at Hiawatha's side. Hiawatha was grateful for the little squirrel and told him that he would reward the boys should for that okay told him that for a reward the boys would always call him Agidemo, which means tail in the air, and the little squirrel was much pleased. Agidemo. Agidemo. It's funny spelling is add and a G and the Daumo. I know I'm butchering these Indian these Native American words, but I'm doing the best I can with this 100-year-old book. Okay. At last, everything became quiet, and Nama, the great surgeon, lay dead and drifted on the surface of the water at the shore, where Hiawatha heard him grade upon the pebbles. There was a great screaming and flapping of wings outside, and finally a gleam of light shone to the place where Hiawatha was sitting. He could see the glittering eyes of the seagulls who had crawled into the open mouth of Nama and were peering down his gullet. Hiawatha cried out to them, "Oh, my brothers, the seagulls! I have killed the great king of fish, Nama, the sturgeon. Stretch and tear with your beaks and claws until the opening becomes wider and you can set me free from this dark prison. To do this, men shall always call you Keusk, Keushk, the seagulls, the noble scratchers." The seagulls, um, the seagulls set to work with a wheel and scratched and tore at Nama's ribs until there was a opening wide enough for Hiawatha and the squirrel to step through and drag the canoe out after them. Hiawatha called Nokomis, pointed, pointed to the body of the sturgeon, and said, "See, Nokomis, I have killed Nama, the king of the fishes, and the seagulls fed upon him. You must not drive them away, for they have saved me from great danger. But when they fly back to their nest at sunset, do you bring your pots and kettles and make of Nama's flesh enough oil to last us through the winter." Nokomis waited until sunset when the seagulls had flown back to their homes in the marshes, and she set to work with her pots and kettles to make yellow oil from the flesh of Nama. She worked all night long until the sun rose again and the seagulls came back screeching and screaming for their breakfast. And for 3 days and 3 nights the seagulls and Nokomis took turns in stripping the greasy flesh from Naamah from his flesh of Naamah from his bones until nothing was left. Then the seagulls flew away for good, and all Nokomis poured her oil into giant jars, and on the sand was only a bare skeleton of Naamah, who had once been the greatest and strongest fish that ever swam. I think my grandma read this to me. I think we had a book of this, and I think my grandma read this to me when I was little, because being an Xer or Generation X, I mean, we didn't have much internet, and my parents really didn't want us to watch TV all day, and most of the time, whatever was on the channels, there weren't hardly anything on there because we only had what, four channels? Channel 3, 5, 10, and 13. That's the only channels we had. Yeah, 3, 5, 10, and 13. Until, we got 30. I mean, till we got 24 and then 30. I mean, that was long ago, but, and my grandma always bought books, all kinds of weird books and strange books. I mean, books that she thought that we needed to know, even though that she only had a third grade education. That's what's cool about my grandma. That's all she only went to as far as the third grade, which would be 10 years old, and then she had to go to work. And she had to pick cotton and do whatever she needed to do. And she's 30 years older than my mama. And she lived a long, hard life. But my grandma was an artist too, so um, there's a story my mom has that they get catalogs because they were farmers, and they would get Sears and Roebuck catalog, and one day everybody had a certain dress that they wanted, and my mom looked in it and said I wanted that dress, and she has this story that she said I want that dress in the morning, and by afternoon when she got out of school, the dress was made for her, was there when she got home, and my grandma made it. My grandma was a good photographer, and I lost her photographies. That's what my mama's kind of got her nose meaning at me, because I lost some of my grandma's photographs. I didn't do it on purpose. I mean, okay, let's get back to the story. Okay, 9. Hiawatha and the Pearl Feather. Okay. Once Nokomis was standing with Hiawatha beside her upon the shore of the big sea water, watching the sunset, and she pointed to the west and said to Hiawatha, "There is the dwelling of the Pearl Feather, a great wizard who is guarded by the fiery snakes that coil and play together in the black pitch of water. You can see them now." And Hiawatha beheld the fiery snakes twisting and wiggling in the black water, and quarrel and uncoil themselves in play. Uh, Nokomis went on. The great wizard killed my father, who had come down from the moon to find me. He killed him by wicked spells and by sly cunning, and now he sends the rank mist of marsh and the deadly fog that brings sickness and death among our people. Take your bow, Hiawatha, said Nokomis, and your war club and your magic mittens. Take the oil of the sturgeon Nema, so that your canoe may glide easily through the sticky black pitch water, and go kill that wizard. Say, save our people from the fever that he beats, that he breathes at them across the marshes, and punish him for my father's death. Swiftly Hiawatha took his war club, his arrows, and his magic mittens, and launched his birch canoe upon the water, and cried, "O birch canoe, leap forward where you see the snakes that play in the black pitch water. Leap forward swiftly, O brother canoe. Now, O my birch canoe, while I sing my war song." And the canoe darted forward like a living thing until it reached the spot where the fiery serpents were sporting in the water. "Out of my way, O serpents!" cried Hiawatha. "Out of my way, and let me go fight with Pearlfeather, the awful wizard." But the serpents only hissed and answered back, "Go back, coward, go back to old Nokomis, faint heart." Then Hiawatha took his bow and spent the arrows, singing among the serpents, and every shot and at every shot one of them was killed, until the other lay dead upon the water. "Onward, my birch canoe!" cried Hiawatha. "Onward to the home of the great wizard." And the canoe darted forward once again. It was a strange place that Hiawatha had entered with the birch canoe. The water was black as ink, and the shore of the lake, dead men lit fires that twinkle in the darkness like eyes of a witch, wicked old witch. Awful shrieks and whistles echoed over the water, and the heron flipped upon the marshes to tell all the evil things who live there that Hiawatha was coming to fight the great wizard. Hiawatha sailed over the dismal lake all night long, and at last, when the sun rose, he saw on the shore in front of him a wigwam, the wigwam of the great magician Pearlfeather. The canoe darted ahead faster and faster until it grated on the beach, and Hiawatha fitted an arrow in his bowstring and sent it hissing upon the open door into the wigwam. "Come out and fight me, Pearlfeather!" cried Hiawatha. "Come out and fight me if you dare." Then Pearlfeather stepped out of his wigwam and stood in open before Hiawatha. He was painted red and yellow and blue, and was terrible to see. In his hands was a heavy war club, and he wore a shirt of shining wampum that could come that would keep out the arrow and break the force of any blow. "Well, do I know you, Hiawatha?" shouted Pearl Feather in a deep, awful voice. "Go back to Nokomis, coward that you are. If if you stay here, I will kill you as I kill her father." "Words are not as sharp as arrows," answered Hiawatha, bending his bow. Then began the battle, even more terrible than the one among the mountains when Hiawatha fought with Majescuries, and it lasted all one summer's day. For Hiawatha's arrows could not pierce Pearl Feather's shirt of wampum, and could not and he could not break it with his blows of magic from blows of his magic mittens. At sunset Hiawatha was so weary that he leaned on his bow to rest. His heavy war club was broken, his magic mittens were torn to pieces, and he had only 3 arrows left. "At last," sighed Hiawatha, "the great magician is too strong for me." Suddenly, from the branches of the nearest tree, he heard the woodpecker call for him. "Hiawatha, Hiawatha," said the woodpecker, "aim your arrows at the tuft of hair on Pearl Feather's head. Aim them at the roots of his long black hair, for there alone you can do him for there alone can you do him any harm." Just then Pearl Feather stopped and picked up a big stone and threw it at Hiawatha, who bent his bow and struck Pearl Feather with the arrow right on the top of his head. Pearl Feather struggled forward like a wounded buffalo. Thwang went the bowstring, and the wizard's knees trembled beneath him, for the second arrow had struck the same spot at, as the first and made the wound much deeper. The third arrow the third arrow followed swiftly, and Pearl Feather saw the eyes of death glare at him from the darkness, and he fell forward on his face right at the feet of Hiawatha and laid there dead. Then Hiawatha called to the woodpecker to him, and as a mark of gratitude he stained the tuft of his feathers on the woodpecker's head with the blood of the dead feather, and the woodpecker wears the tuft of blood red feathers to this day. So basically, Woody. Mhm. Okay. To Hiawatha took the shirt of wampum of the dead wizard as a sign of victory, and from Feather's wigwam he carried all skins and furs and arrows that he could find, and they were many. He loaded his canoe with them and sped homeward over the pitch water, past the dead bodies of the fiery serpents, until he saw Chickabus and Winston, Wasden, and Nokomis waiting for him at shore. All the Indians resembled all the Indians assembled and gave a feast in Hiawatha's honor, and they sang and danced for joy because of the great wizard would never again send sickness or death among them. And Hiawatha took the red crest of the woodpecker to decorate his pipe. for he knew that the woodpecker, his victory was due. So there was a red woodpecker when I had this old tree up here. There was a red-headed woodpecker that was here. So that gives you pretty much what the why the woodpeckers' heads are red. But those are supposed to be extinct or very extinct. But I don't have that old tree anymore, so I don't see the woodpecker around. Okay, it been cut down about 3 years ago. Um, it finally got cut down. Well, a piece of it fell on my car and needed to have been took down before, but it didn't happen. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Okay, well, I guess this would be a pretty good time to go ahead and stop. Yeah, this is a good place to stop. So let me get where I marked it, and the next episode will be Hiawatha's wooing. The next episode will be, so let me write that down. It's on chapter 10, or the 10 one. Okay. We were supposed to go and get some information for uh, my SNAP application, but I guess we're gonna not worry about it. But I mean, my daughter, I got a letter saying they needed it from October till present, but my daughter didn't work. Um, she hadn't worked since um, July, the first week in July. So, and since she's 18, I guess they automatically thought that she's working, but she was only in a program. So I'm asking for prayers, like I normally do, or like the other ones. So go ahead and pray for me. Pray for us. For we're gonna need some help and everything. And I hope you like this episode. Always subscribe and and tell your friends that some stories about Hiawatha, because I don't think anybody even talks about Hiawatha anymore. And this is an old book, so I'm just reading it and seeing what I can get. Um, of course, I'm on. Uh, I have this free, and then I also have it pay on Patreon. So I do have a Patreon account. I have a Speaker and a Spotify account. So um, I have different accounts. So my YouTube channel, I just find a picture and just uh, make it a million times to cover this to make the video. But I thank you for coming and keep us in your prayers. And that's pretty much all until I, you know, break down and read again. Uh, See you in the next one. Okay.